I found a trainer that does programming, or multiple trainers. And I said, I want to do this on the carnivore diet. They're like, first of all, what is that? I was like, oh, you just, you eat meat and it's protein and fat, no carbohydrates. I'm not working with you. They were afraid I was going to die.
Wow.
I've literally had multiple coaches say that they will not work with me because they were afraid I was going to die in the course and they didn't want to coach me.
And they just thought it was not a possibility that nobody could do an Ironman
Yep.
running on fat being carnivore.
We all should know by now how important it is to get in enough protein. I talk about this all the time. An excellent way to add in some additional animal-based protein with a full amino acid profile is with Equip Prime Protein. This is the one I love. This is the one I recommend. Every scoop has 4 ounces of super collagenous grass-fed beef. Use the code TheCarnitarian and you'll get 15% off your first order over at Equip Food.
Today, I have with me Tony Pascolla. Tony's one of those people that who you meet and you just click. We had an awesome conversation on his podcast, the Primal Foundations podcast. And I knew I had to just bring him on here to do more of a deep dive into his story. Tony is a physical education teacher. He is a strength and nutrition coach and an Ironman athlete. He has gone from veganism to keto, and now he is thriving on a carnivore diet. Tony, welcome to the channel.
Thank you for having me. And again, I appreciate you coming on my channel too. It was great to chat with you, and I'm excited to have another conversation.
Yeah, that was a super fun time. I really just love having these great conversations with people where you can get deep into topics and things like the coaching and stories we have about, how different people experience, the carnivore diet and problems they have and troubleshooting through that and stuff like that. So now today we're going to get into your views on training and getting healthy. We'll talk about carnivore and how you combine nutrition, with your training. But to start, I would love if you could sort of walk us through some key moments in your background that influenced you in your transition through these diets and different training models that you've used. You've been from veganism to keto to carnivore. And so, how did that process happen for you?
I would say the beginning, and I always mention it, is when I was really young, I was very overweight. I was hefty, husky pants. Up until I think I was about 6th, 7th grade, I was just really really overweight. Big Italian family. Everything's about food. Doesn't matter what we're doing. We had too much food, and the household grab Pop Tarts when you want. I was a Pop Tart kid. We could have cereal. We could have whatever we wanted. Desserts. Oh yeah, have another dessert kind of thing. And I was just really big, and I struggled with that. That really socially was a big thing for me. To start working out, I have no idea what I was doing. There was no YouTube back then. You just saw what you saw in the muscle magazines, or you get advice from people. So I started running a lot. Uh, at a young age. I didn't go very far, very fast, but then eventually, I remember I've told the story a bunch where where I live just outside of Chicago, where I grew up. There we had alleys, and I would run in the alleys at nighttime, so my friends wouldn't see me on the street, like on the sidewalk running, because I was just so embarrassed. Yeah, and then I started lifting weights and working out and running, and I did hit a little bit of a growth spurt, and I started going into my high school, year, my freshman year. I thinned out a lot. I put muscle on. I was so excited to do sports, but that food, relationship with food, and really the addiction, I really was just doing the old model of eat less and move more. That's all I was doing: eat less and move more. And I say I had the privilege to wrestle. I think it's one of the best sports. I coached it for a long time, but that exacerbated my relationship with food all through high school, because everything I did was about how much I'm eating in season, how much am I not eating in season. When the season was over, the binging, I was a binger. I would, eat until I was full and couldn't eat anymore, and I would have some more after that. So just that yo-yo dieting that I would get really strict, and again, not eat a ton and just lose a bunch of weight, but that is a very unsustainable thing. And everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people go through that. And I feel for people that yo-yo, then they can't get it down. I went to college, all that stuff, gained the freshman, I would say 50. Yeah, I gained like 50 pounds from my senior year when I ended wrestling to my freshman year of college.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was just like, man, I'll never forget. I had friends that they saw me. I went to go meet them up. I haven't seen them since high school, and they're just like looking at me like, Tony, is that you? I was like, yeah, hey, how you doing? And they're like, oh shoot, because I was always like pretty in shape, but um, yeah, I got real, strict again. I started doing marathons because I'm like, I need a goal. Like I have to have a goal. That's just me. If I don't have a goal and I'm just left to my own devices, I have nothing to train for, so yet I'm not going to be disciplined and consistent. And that's that little athlete piece of me too. So started running more, started trying to watch what I was eating, and then I joined a gym, which kind of introduced me to kettlebells and functional training, which I absolutely loved. I fell in love with the unconventional style of training as well. However, the gym was called Monkey Bar Gym Chicago. Great gym, like great programming, but they had a big vegan like push. That was a thing. And we all watched Forks Over Knives. We all watched all these vegan propaganda things, and the the owner would reference the China study, and we ended up being trainers there. The gym shut down, but I was a vegan for like 2 years. Yeah, I lost like a lot of weight at the beginning. I'm like, man, this I feel good. I feel good. I lost weight, and that happens. That's the honeymoon phase that people talk about, and most people that come from a vegan background, when they switch over from just a standard American diet or like a shitty, going out to eat all the time diet, you're gonna
Mhm.
feel better because you're just getting like regular food. But at one point it starts to change where I started gaining weight and I started developing health issues. My gut was really bad. I was always irritable. I felt like I could never eat enough. I was always hungry. My hair started to thin out. Started getting bald spots all over my head. And then one of the worst things was I had belpharitis in my eyes, which is where
Wow.
the hair follicles start to flare up, and then your eye puffs up, and it looks like I got punched in the face. Like basically,
Mm.
it was bad. They kept telling me put hot compresses on it. It's gonna help, and this and that. It never worked. I went to a crazy string of antibiotics. They put me on doxycycline. So every month I was just ready because every month the flare up would come back. I would be on doxycycline, and that caused more health issues for me. I was always getting sick. I was like, man, I can't keep doing this anymore. So that's when keto got really popular. This is like 2000 and what is that, like 14, 15, something like that. Went keto. I liked it. I mean, more meat. I love meat. I love steak, all that stuff. And
Yeah, it's great. We love it.
yeah, and you're having vegetables because like, well, I have to, right? I need it for the nutrients. And
That's what
then
they say.
that's what they say, and my belpharitis started going away. It would flare up from time to time, but kinda went away, and it didn't really, come back as aggressively. A little bit of flare-ups here and there. My hair started to come back a little bit. I felt the mental clarity that everybody talks about. I was like, "Oh, shoot, this is awesome." And then I roll into like what is it, 2017-ish, the Sean Baker carnivore episode with Joe Rogan. It was like 2018, 2017, something like that. I'm like, huh, I'm gonna give that a try. And I started reducing the vegetables because keto's cool. I think ketogenic diet's great if people want to do that. That's a better diet than standard American diet. I got a little complicated for me of like, what's a net carb? What's not a net carb? Like, what's going on here? And I just didn't want to do the calculating anymore. And
Mm.
I went carnivore a little bit before 2019. I was on it feeling good. I still had some vegetables here and there, but I would say I was ketovore mostly. The pandemic hit. Everybody was home. I'm like, oh, we're gonna be this is gonna be 2 weeks. We're ordering pizzas. We got 6 packs in the fridge. I gained a ton of weight over COVID. Like it really shook me. Being isolated and just being in the house and always buy food. And once kind of everything started to open up a little bit, I'm like, I can't eat like this anymore. I don't feel good. My belfritis started coming back. I'm like, I'm going straight up carnivore. And I went straight up carnivore and I felt great. Weight dropped off. It was just came off. I was putting on muscle. I was feeling good. I was working out a lot because there was literally nothing to do. Nothing's open. So I had a buddy meet me at a park. He would bring his kettlebells, and because there's no gyms open, we were just doing kettlebells. And I wasn't as strong as I was 3 or 4 years ago, but then slowly after the months, we just do clean squat press, running sprints, all this stuff. I started getting really, really good shape. I'm like, holy crap. I'm pretty damn good shape. Like, you can see the ribs, I can see the abs a little bit. And then I was like, I don't know if you want me to go into this is where like the kickoff point for Ironman training started.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would love for you to like hold on to that for just a
Sure,
second
sure.
because now when you switched from keto to well, basically you went from keto to like a COVID diet, right?
Yeah,
Like
yes.
you kind of just like dropped everything. And did you feel like so it wasn't 2 weeks, we all thought it was going to be 2 weeks. It wasn't
Yeah.
2 weeks. How long did that go on for you where you were eating so terribly before you then said I've had it. Like I've got to get back to something and then you went into carnivore?
It's gotta be maybe 3 months, I would say. About probably at least 3 months. I was in a not a really good relationship. I was confined to a small apartment. Uh, I didn't know what was going on. I'm a PE teacher by trade, and I'm doing my classes via Zoom with kids, and I don't have the connection with anybody. My coworkers, I can't see them. This is coming from somebody who I love going to work. I love being with my coworkers. I love teaching with the kids. Like that's a passion of mine. And then when you take that away and like, oh, you got to teach from your couch, like
Mm.
I really just didn't know what to do with myself. And then I kind of reverted, just emotional eating of I just don't know what to do with myself. I ate a lot. So yeah, about I would say 3 months of just, I started just having these cheat meals at first and I try to kind of eat
Mhm.
healthy, try to stay keto. Uh and it just yeah, no, I binged a lot.
I mean, I can relate to your like growing up background for sure. Like in my house, like half Italian for me, and it was desserts and coffee every night after dinner. The Entenmann's was unlimited, like pantry was unlimited. And I imagine like the emotional eating that you do as a kid is just so comforting. And so when you fall back, this is what you can tend to fall back into. And so after that period of time, you went to carnivore and then you felt like how long did it take for you? Like you said, the weight just dropped off. You started feeling better right away. I mean, what was it about carnivore that you felt was it better than keto? Like, was it different and how?
Yeah, less complicated, right? Like less complicated. I don't have to worry about getting plants or anything like that. I would say after 2 weeks or so, I started feeling a lot better. And I think it was because I was keto before that I was used to running on low carbohydrate. I would still have them, but I think my body was still adapted to that. And then once I eliminated them completely, my sleep was better. I really noticed like I didn't have flare ups of belfritis. Nowadays, like even though I'm like 95% carnivore, very once in a while, I feel like if I have red wine or something like that, or something I shouldn't be having, I'll get a little sensation like, oh man, I'm gonna have a flare up. But when I went strict carnivore, my sleep was better, my gut was good, my mental clarity was back, and no flare ups in the eyes. And I always tell people it's not the biggest deal in the world of health issues, but it was affecting like my day to day. So
Right.
within 2 weeks.
That's awesome. I mean, it is a big deal. If it's some health, any health problem that's affecting
Mhm.
you on the daily, like it is, it's really a big deal. And it's such a life changing thing to not have to worry about when you go to bed what your health is going to be like in the morning, you know?
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then the mental benefits that you were talking about, like how did you feel differently? You were still teaching from home at that point when you went to carnivore. And did you find the experience different? Like you found more motivation? Like, how was the clarity different?
I think the clarity was different because of a few factors. I think because I was eating just meat, I was eating sausages, hamburgers, steaks, like, that was pretty much it, eggs, bacon, and I wasn't freaking out about my food or thinking about my food a lot. That was one thing that was, and it's a huge deal for me because I'm coming from this background of food addiction, comfort food. I'm on a diet that I could eat if I'm hungry, I eat. Right,
Mm.
and I'm following the diet. This is what everybody says, they just eat this, and I would eat till I was full and satiated. I'm not freaking out about my meals. I was doing mostly OMAD when I got started. I'm like, I wanna really kickstart this off of doing 1 meal a day with the intermittent fasting, and that's one less thing I have to think about in the day. I don't have to think about anything else. I know my meal. I have it in the freezer or the fridge. And then I used to between six or well, between, yeah, 4 and 6, I would eat. That would be my window. And I'd eat until I was full. And then I'm like, okay, by the time I started settling down, I'm ready for bed. And then I can attack my day. That's one less thing I got to think about. And I just felt so good. And I just didn't feel confined as much as I did when I was eating like crap. I just felt very open to anything. My emotions were really even keeled. I wasn't getting irritated at all. Yeah, that just it's the carnivore bliss, you know?
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, I hear about this all the time. And I mean,
Yeah.
yes, I've experienced this too, where it's like the energy is there, the clarity is there, the focus is there, the depression is gone, the anxiety is gone. Like it's just such an easier kind of way of dealing with, you know, being an adult, right? And how how has switching to carnivore affected your athletic performance? Because like you said, you were working out a lot. Can you talk a little bit about like did you have any concerns that you weren't then eating vegetables, you weren't getting any carbohydrates in, you weren't going to be able to perform and throw kettlebells around?
Yeah, I was starting to hear this term fat adapted and fat adapted athletes. And I went through a rabbit hole a little bit of there was I looked at Running on Fat 2, which is the documentary. Because I was thinking, I'm like, I don't want to change my diet. I feel so good. Started researching, trying to figure out like, can people do this? And one of the things that came up in the research was this documentary, and it talks all about two former triathletes that they're a couple and they do low carb ketogenic diets, and they did this crazy boat like race thing where they row from Hawaii to California or California to Hawaii, something on all low carb diet. And they were I think the husband, the name is escaping me, but after he was done he was like one of the best triathletes in the world. He was like pre-diabetic. He's like, I'm one of the best athletes in the
Wow.
world. And how am I pre-diabetic? Well, over all of the years of his training, he was just smashing himself with carbohydrates because that's the only thing that we knew at the time was, oh, gotta have high carb, gotta have high carb. You know, you can't operate. You're gonna run out of energy and you're gonna bonk. And bonking is like your brain is fighting the rest of your body for glucose, and then you just start to shut down. And you'll see people in races where they're like falling over and they can barely run straight anymore. That's not
Mm.
necessarily meaning that their muscles can't do it. It's their brain is shutting down because I don't have enough glucose coming to my brain. Something's wrong. I need to shut the body down. And that's where you see them like falling over into the finish line or collapsing. It's not necessarily they're not strong enough or they don't have the stamina. You know, these are elite athletes. Their nutrition was actually the thing that got them in trouble.
Wow. I mean, that I'd never even considered that's the reason. And so you saw that documentary and you said, "No, I'm good to go. Let's." Let's do
Well,
this.
a little bit. I looked into Zach Bitter, who is he? I think he still has it. He has the one indoor 100-mile record. He's a ketogenic athlete. And then I was looking. I said, okay, there's a few people that are doing it out here. I think I'm gonna try this. I started doing my training runs. Everything I did was fasted. Everything I would work out, lifted, fasted. I would run, fasted. And before I knew it, like there's two theories to this. I actually did a podcast with Dr. Kiltz, and he actually thinks the theory is wrong for different reasons, and it's really good. Check out that podcast, Dr. Kiltz, Primal Foundations.
We'll
But
link it.
yeah, we'll link it. He has a really great theory on this that we cannot, like, quote unquote, we can't breathe air and breathe water, right? You can't burn fat and burn carbohydrates. He's like, it's all we are always burning fat. He's like, and it's a whole thing. It's really good. But the what more people kind of follow is you're either a sugar burner or you're a fat burner. And that's kind of the consensus of like, I'm going to store as much glycogen in my liver, which will give you like 2,000 calories, and, and you can only X amount of carbohydrates. And that's why racers, they keep refilling as they got the bar on the bike, they got the bars and gel blocks on the run. They keep refilling the tank so you don't run out of energy. But if you're a fat burner, this fat adapted approach, you don't need carbohydrate. It's really an inefficient source. So the theory is you are going to burn your own body fat. So now, I don't care how lean you think you are. Does it? Everybody has body fat. There's nobody in the world that has zero body fat. If that's the case, they're dead, right?
Right.
People get into low digits for like aesthetic reasons, but for the majority that people are working out and running, doing races, they're going to have body fat. Even if they're ripped, they still got body fat on them. And you can use that body fat on you as energy. It's actually the preferable source, body fat and ketones, right? So I was like, I'm going to do an Ironman. I'm like, I'm going to do an Ironman because I got nothing else to do. And this is a bucket list. And I'm in such good shape. And my runs were so good. I was like, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. And so I was looking for trainers, to like do some programming for me because I've done marathons. I never did biking. I can swim. I'm a lifeguard and stuff, and I've done some swimming things. Like, I could swim, but I don't know if I could swim 2.4 miles. So I found a trainer that does programming, or multiple trainers. And I said, I want to do this on the carnivore diet. They're like, first of all, what is that? I was like, oh, you just, you eat meat and it's protein and fat, no carbohydrates. I'm not working with you. They were afraid I was going to die.
Wow.
I've literally had multiple coaches say that they will not work with me because they were afraid I was going to die in the course and they didn't want to coach me.
And they just thought it was not a possibility that nobody could do an Ironman
Yep.
running on fat being carnivore.
Yep. They were
Not
like,
possible.
no way. And then
Wow. All right.
insert our boy, Casey
Mhm.
Ruff.
Oh, we
S-
love Casey.
Yes.
Okay, now we're gonna get back to this. I wanna talk more about how you trained for your Ironman, but what I'd love to do,
Hmm.
if we can insert
Sure.
now, let's take a break and take a little speed round. Will you do
Sure.
that with me? Okay.
Absolutely.
Then we will get into how Casey helped you.
Yeah.
We love Casey. He's so sweet. He's a great guy. All right. Are you ready for the speed round? I say this all the time. You may or may not have seen these questions beforehand. We're going to put you on the spot with some rapid fire questions. So pick one of these two choices. Go with your gut. Explain yourself if you feel like it is warranted. Here we go. You ready? Number one, ground beef and bacon or steaks and butter?
Steaks and butter.
Steaks and butter for me too, all the
Yeah,
way.
it's not, don't need to explain myself there.
Yeah. How do you feel about meal prep and monotony versus carnivore variety every day?
Rephrase the question.
Would you rather meal prep and have the same thing every day or have to cook on the spot and have variety every day?
I would go with I don't meal prep. So I guess cook on the spot.
Cook on the spot. That's what I do. I don't
I
meal prep
don't co
anymore.
yeah, I was like, "Oh, if I have to have steaks every day, yes, sure." But I don't meal prep. I just, I
All
know what
right.
I have in the freezer or the fridge. It's ready to go. I'd rather cook on the spot.
Nice. All right. So, plate or cutting board?
Cutting board. You
Cutting
can't be an
board.
influencer with your food on a plate. It's gotta be on a wood cutting
Like,
board.
eat meat, use wood.
Yeah.
Dairy or dairy free?
Uh, I would say I do put cream in my coffee. So I would have to say dairy, but it's very limited.
Mm. I do also. I do a lot of yogurt
Mhm.
and some cheese because I do love some cheese, but I do a lot of yogurt.
Parmigiano
Um,
Reggiano, yeah.
oh, you have to have the Parmigiano Reggiano or the Romano.
Yeah,
So for seafood, would you prefer 2 lobster tails or unlimited shrimp?
neither.
Oh,
I don't
no
I
seafood for you?
No, when we talk about the travel stuff, we'll talk about some, I don't know if you saw some pictures from Japan of the sushi, but, yeah, my family thinks I'm weird because I'm one of the only family members when we do the, 7 fishes, I
Huh?
I don't eat that day.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't like seafood.
Unbelievable. How are we friends? Okay, fine. Um, grill, stovetop, or air fryer? What do you love?
Grill, grill.
Grill. I'm a grill girl myself. Yes. Sprints or long runs? Which do you prefer?
Man, if I had to choose, I would choose long runs.
Wow, you're psychotic. Okay, I've got a non-carnivore Italian question for you. Sauce or gravy?
I'm glad you asked this because we need to
Mm,
clear the air here.
mhm. I hope we agree.
It's only sauce if there's no meat in there. If there's meat in there, like if you put brajioles or meatballs
Right,
in the sauce, it now
right.
becomes gravy. That's
If Okay, that's fair. You're from Chicago. I'm from New York. I'll give you your Chicago gravy if it's got the meat. I never say gravy. We always say sauce.
sauce. Okay.
But this is what I understand. Okay, if it's got the meat, so I'm with you. Follow up to that question: meatloaf or meatballs?
I do like meatloaf, but if I had to choose, oh man, I guess
Seriously, you have to think this hard about it.
it's weird. I do
Come
like
on.
meatloaf. Like my ma makes a really good meat. She makes good meatballs. Ma, you make good meatballs, but she actually makes really good meatloaf. I mean, this one
Wow.
does have they both have breadcrumbs actually, if you're cooking it the way
My
that she
meatballs
cooks
don't
it.
have
Your
breadcrumbs in them.
meatballs don't. Uh, I'm gonna go meatloaf. I'm gonna shock the world
All
there.
right. Sticking with mom. That's fair. Okay, final question. This one's a little bit different. If you could only eat one carnivore meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Just ribeye. I can eat
Ribeye.
ribeye every day.
I love that. I feel like that's a very popular option. I mean, I am such a fan of ribeye and I don't eat them as often anymore because I'm like trying to stay a little bit lower on the fat percentage, a little higher on the protein percentage. So
Yep.
I've like transitioned. I'm like a flat iron steak girl now. Isn't
Yeah.
that crazy?
Mm-hmm.
It's wild, but they're delicious. I'm all about sirloins and flat iron steaks. Okay. Well, thank you, Tony. Thanks for participating
Yeah.
in the speed round. I appreciate it. Thank you for your answers. And now let's get back to it. You had brought up our good friend, Casey Ruff, who is also a personal trainer,
Mm-hmm.
nutrition coach, carnivore coach, such as yourself and myself. You found him and he helped you train for the Ironman. How did he do that?
So, well, Casey has a really good background in cycling too. Like Casey does very long distances of cycling. I don't think he's as competitive now. But when I found him, because I'm like, because all these people that told me I was gonna die out there kind of got in my head. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like,
Mm,
okay, I gotta find somebody to help me because if I'm gonna do this, I don't want to do it like how everybody else wants to do it. So back in the day before Rivero, it was MeatRx. I'm not sure if you remember when it was
I
MeatRx,
do. Yes.
and Casey was a coach on there, and I got in contact with him. We scheduled a call, and I was like, "Hey, just introduce myself. I'm like, I have this. I want to do an Ironman. I saw you do long distance cycling, this, that, and the other." And I was just like, I read this, I saw this, I want to do it this way. And he's just literally going, "Yeah, uh huh, uh huh." And then he like stops me at the end. He's like, honestly, you are correct. Like, this is all the stuff that I think is is going to help you with your race. He's like, I think you just are looking for permission to do this. And I was like, I guess, yeah. And he's like, yeah, man, do it, do it.
Do
And
it.
yeah, so I was like, that literally, that's the push I needed uh, for that. And we talked about a little bit of some fasting stuff and some different options that I could use on my bike or whatever. So he gave me some really good tips. And I just ran with that. And then I found another coach that did my programming, but didn't do any nutrition for me. And he was actually cool. He was a local guy up in Evanston, just outside of Chicago. And he's like, I don't know what that is, but if you want to do carnivore, do it. He's like, but just stick to my training plan. I said, you got it. So then I started training. I bought a awesome bike, was doing long runs. I would do my long runs with electrolytes because that's one of the things that me and Casey talked about was like, how much electrolytes am I taking? When should I take them? But my long run, sometimes I was putting in 18 miles in the morning before work, and I would just have a water bottle and electrolytes. That's it.
Wow.
Where I was, you see people going for a half marathon, and now I look at this, I'm like, this is insane. People do half marathons or 5Ks, and they're strapped with gels and goos and all. I'm like, oh my God, like this is like a propaganda money making thing. This is its
Mhm.
own thing. All the energy drinks, all those shot blocks, all the race fuel. I think there are certain situations where you're going to need some race fuel depending on who you are, but not to me, not on a 5K. Like you could do it without food, but this is what we're programmed and this is the thought process of what we need to complete these long endurance races and going on 100-mile bike rides, right? I remember my first century ride, I rode out 50 miles. I had two water bottles with electrolytes. I stopped and got coffee at a Starbucks, shake out my legs 50 miles, and I came back. That's all I had. And then that is what really got me into like carnivore, to be completely honest, of like, this works. I'm able to do these really long endeavors, right? Biking, running, swimming, my all fasted. My performance is great. I'm still maintaining muscle and I even got a little bit stronger, to be honest. I didn't go away from strength training. I did my own strength training, my own strength programming, anywhere from 2 to 3 days a week. I wasn't trying to put muscle on, but I actually, by doing all the cross training and recovery, I actually put on muscle while I was triathlon training, which is the opposite for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I could build muscle. I'm super efficient. I don't need to eat a ton. I feel great. I'm like, this is the diet. This works. And I'll never in the turning point where I knew I wanted to be a coach or at least do something with carnivore was when I got done with the Ironman in Arizona. Got done with the Ironman in Arizona. There's people around the tents at the end of the night. I was, grabbing a little. I think I had fruit or something. I was like, whatever. I'm done. I finished, and I think I only had like 50 carbs the whole entire iron. It took me 15 hours to do. And this girl was like, I can't even look at food. I can't look at food. I said, she's like, how many gel blocks did you have? I was like, zero. And
Right.
there's like a couple people, and they like looked. She's like, well, what'd you eat? I'm like, I had a fat bomb and a UCAN, and I think that was it. She's like, "How many carbs did you have?" I'm like, "I think like 50, maybe." They were dumbfounded because they were taking in anywhere from 80 to 100 and something carbs per hour,
Wow.
per hour.
Yeah, so you're just like Superman at that point to them. They think you are not of this world.
Yeah, and the more research I started doing into these things, like a lot of people drop out of races because of GI issues.
Mm.
You
That's a
know,
lot of carbohydrate to take in. That's a lot of goo.
it's a lot of goo. Your body's trying to digest all of this stuff while it still needs energy. It's just a recipe for disaster. So either you're gonna bonk or you're going to have a lot of GI distress, and you're gonna like keel over. Like, I can't even finish this race. So yeah, going after the Ironman, I was like, this works. I love this diet. I can perform at a, I wouldn't say a high level. Like, I wasn't elite by any means, but I can do really hard things physically and I don't run out of energy and I don't need to keep eating. And I was like, this is just I need to keep this lifestyle going.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's incredible how it has caught on, how carnivore has caught on in the athletic community, but I'm always surprised that it hasn't become more popular, that people are still entrenched in this idea that you need carbohydrates to grow strength, to grow muscle, and to have endurance. It's like, not really. Like, not in reality, and there's so many people, like you mentioned Zach Bitter, like, who just don't necessarily need to. I know he does some targeted carbohydrates, I think,
Hmm.
um, but, like, you just can fuel yourself without the bunk just on your body fat. It's just incredible. So now you're this Ironman finisher. You have this kettlebell program now and an app. And so you said, I'm going to do this carnivore coaching thing. How did you develop the tandem coaching with kettlebells and carnivore? And how do you integrate those? Like, why kettlebells as opposed to like other training? Like, I know you started kettlebells, at that gym.
Hmm.
Um, and so you just said, like, that's the one for me. That's the one I love the most. Or is there an advantage to kettlebells that you find that people aren't getting when they're doing other types of strength training, like machines at the gym or free weights at the gym?
Yeah, I think I look back to there's a couple reasons. Like one, like I mentioned earlier, when all the gyms were shut down, like I can run, I can bike. If there's a lake, I can swim. But the one thing that got me in shape was a buddy bringing a couple kettlebells to a park. And I have strong first, and they're could be interchangeable. Even though I veered a strong first. RKC is right there too, so I couldn't mention strong first, not RKC, but I got a level 1 certification. I started working at gyms. Once the gym started to open up, I got some people contacting me who I knew, like, hey, we're opening up our gym back up. It was one of the moms of one of my students. She's like, I know you were a personal trainer from before. Do you want to come in? I was like, yeah. So I started coaching more. They had tons of kettlebells at this gym. And I was like showing people how to use the kettlebell. And they're like, oh my God, like I've been doing it wrong for years, and I just got these aha moments. And, because I'm a teacher and I love that. But now I'm doing this with adults. Kids, you have those aha moments and you have these experiences and they learn, but I'm seeing the exact same thing with adults, and I get to have adult conversations too, which is great. So
Boom.
yeah, it's a bonus, and I can listen to music that has swear words in it. So I started doing more kettlebell workshops. Run one once a month because we were programming as a gym kettlebell movements into the programming, but yet like the kettlebell, you need a lot of technique to it. It's just like anything else. Like if you really want to get good at it, you got to take the time to put into it. And the clients started seeing a lot of results, a lot of power, a lot of strength over time when they got better at the bell and they see the bell sizes go up. And that's why I love kettlebells. It's minimalist training. I'm talking about minimal effective dose. Like this is going to be this minimalist style of training where I don't need a lot of stuff. So I can't go up to a 24 kilo until I master this bell. So there is this, I have to learn it. I got to own it before I can jump up. And when people stay with a certain weight for a longer period of time, it's safer for them because they're not jumping up too heavy, too fast, too soon. That's why people get hurt a lot. So it's already kind of built in that I have to develop skill. I have to get really good at this bell before I can move up. And it's just so versatile. You can do, we call it grinds and ballistic movements or ballistic loading, right? So a ballistic movement is something that's really quick, kettlebell snatch, a kettlebell swing, and you can do it repeatedly and you're going to not fatigue the muscles as much over time, and you're going to get a cardiovascular benefit from it. You're going to develop some strength. You're going to get a like a kettlebell swing. I'm I'm moving a load and I'm absorbing it and redirecting it. Like that is athletics. So the
Mm.
kettlebell swing, the kettlebell snatch, these hinge movements with lots of power, and I can do 100 swings in a day, and I'm great. Just you do 100 reps of something, you're like, oh God, I'm crushed. But I can get away. I might feel a little sore the next day, a little bit,
Mm.
but I can do ballistics with that, work on my speed, my power. Grinds are going to be something that is a little bit slower of a movement, building more strength, like a military press, kettlebell deadlift, Turkish get up. And you can do those with a little bit of a bigger bell, a little bit less volume with that. I mean, you could go more volume if you have a smaller bell and you don't have anything bigger. Uh, but that's a lot of time under tension. You're going to build some strength. So it's this piece of it's a minimalist approach. You're going to get the minimum effective dose on top of it's this natural progression where you have to own the technique before you can go up in a bell size or quote unquote graduate to a bigger bell size. And it's just kind of built in. And I think that's why I love it. It's so great. So,
That's really great. I mean, it
yeah.
sounds very cool. I love the idea of like mastering that weight before you take that leap to the next what would be your goal, you know? And so you're shooting for that goal, but you're not going to get there without doing all the work. Like I love that.
Yeah.
It's really cool. So now what about cardio, which we haven't really talked about much? And people talk about like, oh, you need cardio. Would you consider kettlebell like the ballistic stuff? Is that a cardio workout? How do you feel about cardio? Like people like first I would love for you to say like for the people who've never tried kettlebells, like what kind of equipment do they need to pick up like first? Like what would you suggest somebody who's never tried kettlebells, like what would they need to get? And then is there something they need to add to that? Is cardio like a thing that you do it alongside kettlebells? Is it required?
To parse that out a little bit, I would say the bell size is going to depend on the person and their fitness level a little bit, kind of just like anything else. Like somebody coming from a female or a male coming from an athletic background. If we're talking they're starting in the beginning, two things to get that two movements that they need to kind of master first would be a kettlebell swing and a Turkish get up. I think those are two really good movements that they can master. There's other things you could sprinkle in there for sure. But those are just kind of two big basic movements that it's once you learn the swing, you can develop into a snatch. Once you learn the Turkish get up and that movement, you can start doing different types of grinds. 16 kilo for a female, 24 kilo for a male for that swing bell. Turkish get up, you're going to want something a little bit lighter to start out with, or do a body weight. You could do a body
Huh,
weight. Yeah,
okay.
you don't even have to have the bell. It's just getting that movement down. Again, if they're a little bit older, you could go down in a bell size, totally fine. But the swing is probably the most. There's a lot of people, a lot of athletes that develop a kettlebell swing later in their career, and they say I wish I would have
Mm.
known about what kettlebells are and a kettlebell swing because it has helped me so much later in my career. I wish I would have did it. And there is such thing as carryover with bells. This is another thing that people don't realize there is carryover. What I mean by that is if you take somebody who masters a kettlebell swing and can get up to like a heavy weight, there's people that do that and their deadlift goes up like 70 pounds. There's the carryover where you don't we're not talking aesthetics. Like if you want to, the big guns or whatever, you're going to be doing tons of bicep curls. That doesn't translate to athletics a lot. It just looks good
Mhm.
in a t-shirt. But if you do a lot of kettlebell movements, we call it big six, a swing, a clean, a snatch, a press, and a Turkish get up. If you cover all those bases, that is all the movement patterns, you are going to get stronger.
You're just gonna be fully functionally fit.
You're going to be an absolute unit. Yeah. So you're going to get stronger. So I think a 24 kilo for a male that's an average athlete or has a little bit of experience, in a 16 kilo for a female or even a 12 kilo. That's like
Mhm.
starter bells, and you can always go up from there. The second part to your question is the cardio piece. I think that people we'll separate it too, like kettlebell and like just running, right? So kettlebell, you can get the cardio effect, right? You get the heart rate up, all that jazz. You can get the heart health benefits from doing swings. Now, you don't have to do kettlebell swings for hours on end. Today, my swings were I did 5 single arm swings on each arm and 5 snatches on each arm with a little bit of a lighter bell. Put the bell down, shook it out. We call it anti-glycolytic work, and that means that any of the lactic acid that you start to build up, like you feel the burn, right?
Oh,
Everybody's like
yeah.
wants to feel the burn. Once you start to develop that waste product, we want to actually let that clear. We actually want to give recovery and rest in between sets. And as long as it takes you to feel fresh to go again, take that
Mm,
time. If you keep jumping to a bell or jumping to a cardio machine and going all out, it breeds disaster. So we call it anti-glycolytic work. So I can develop a little bit of waste product in my body, let it clear, go again. And then I would do, I did my 1 and 1 hand swings, 5 and 5 with some snatches. And then I went to a heavier bell and I did 2 hand swings for 10. And I went back and forth, 5 sets each. So 10 sets. I was cooked. And it didn't take me 45 minutes, an hour. I was huffing and puffing in between the sets. And that's where I like to say that's the minimum effective dose. I felt if I went any more, that I was going to start to really I was going to be redlining a little too much. And this is where the over time and training and proper programming go into effect of I kind of know when to back off a little bit. So you can get these really good aerobic benefits from kettlebells. Going into sprinting and running, right? I think sprinting is great. I try to sprint once a week if I can, and sprinting can look different for everybody. It can look different, and you can go 10, 15, 20 seconds. It could be an airdyne bike, could be a rower, could be sprinting on a treadmill uh, uh, an assault treadmill that has no motor. So like a fan power treadmill kind of deal where you just run and in the treads just move. You can do it outside, whatever, right? Sprinting could look so many different ways. I could do sprinting with jumping jacks. 10
huh,
seconds as
right.
fast as I can go. If you have no equipment, I can do high knees for as fast as I can go. So I think doing sprinting and you're going to get your heart rate up for sure. And then you have to let it come back down. So over time, you get faster and you stay recovered in between your runs, and you're just more efficient because once you run too hot and you push too hard, you can't train as often. You're going to be too sore, and your body starts to break down. So that's the methadone method.
Great
MAFF
tip.
methadone. Yeah. And it's very if people like to run or have experience running, it's a really hard thing for them to grasp around. Like practice your sprinting or you want to finish your run a little bit, a little bit harder at the end, kind of like
Right.
practice your kick because that's you're racing and you want to practice the kick. I get that, but I think just the average Joe Schmo person, they just want to cover their bases and they like to run and they want to incorporate in their fitness routine. Methadone method.
Wow, that's such a great tip. I mean, I am not a runner. I have never enjoyed running. So all of y'all who do enjoy running, like you say, I run because I like it. These words in that order don't make sense to me, but I love this tip. It's so great for people to like have that goal, beats per minute, heart rate, and realize that they will become, like you said, more efficient and their pace will go up and they can maintain their heart rate and they don't have to slam their bodies to the wall every time they run,
Yeah.
to try and get faster. It's not about like pushing it to try and get faster. You could just stay there and you'll get faster. That's really cool. So now switching topics just a little bit, I would love your opinion on the debate around, do carnivore calories count, right? People talk about gaining weight, losing weight. It's a calories thing. And you have found that with carnivore, weight came off easily. You can eat until you're satisfied. Where do you fall on the spectrum of, there is a point where you can be overeating on carnivore? It is possible, or maybe it's not possible, to gain weight on carnivore. Um, how do you feel the calories topic applies to somebody who's on a carnivore diet?
It's one of the things or topics that we talked about when you were on my podcast as well. And I think this is a very important thing to talk about with people because we are carnivore people, we don't want to
Mm.
sway anybody away from not eating meat or not having butter or not having these kind of things. I do feel there is a limit. And again, everybody, we are all humans, and we all should be eating a proper human diet. Yet, some people's bodies, activity level, sleep, genders, whatever, like everybody's a little different there of amount of food that you should be consuming. My view is I was doing really great and lost a ton of weight switching from a different diet. I feel like once I lowered my activity level a little bit, because I still run, I still lift, I still do all those things. Over this past year, I have gained weight slowly, but I don't track. I'm not in. I just do things intuitively. I feel that, and again, I very rarely quote unquote cheat, or I really very rarely go off of carnivore. And I have an even crazier story about Japan too. It's even funnier. But I got up to like 197 pounds. And racing, I was like in my low set 170s. And then naturally, I'm about in my 180s. I float between 180 and 185. I stepped on the scale, like, my pants kinda felt a little bit tighter, whatever. I stepped on the scale, I was like, "Holy crap, I'm 197? Like, that's wild." I'm about to be like, I'm 1 ribeye away from 200, right? Like, I was
Wow,
like
yeah.
yeah, I was like, "Geez." And I didn't feel crappy. I still felt good, but I definitely noticed I didn't have the same amount of definition, right? And so aesthetically, I did gain weight. It's just you're not gonna look as good as the body fat starts to go up. Not that I think that I was unhealthy. There was nothing wrong with that, and I think that if and this is a piece of individuality, right? I think my body fat was like 18%. It was like 18%. If I'm okay with that and I feel good and I have this food freedom and I'm eating till I'm full, I don't think there is anything wrong with that. Now, I don't have a
Mm.
health issue. I can run, I can lift heavy, I can do all the things in the world that I am capable. I am not bound by anything. So, but I again, 18% is a little high for me. I'm getting into the almost the 200s. I'm 5'6" and 3/4 on a good day. So
Mm.
that's not I'm not very tall. So the weight you can see on me. And in the conversation that we had, I started just kind of not as eating. I used to do 2 pounds of meat, the volume piece. I just had I don't know if you know of or have talked to Coach Bronson.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Mhm.
basically like mass eating and eating for satiety type deal. And eating for satiety, some people like you can put 6 pounds of ribeye and they'll down it. They don't
Mhm.
even need it and they'll down it because
The volume
oh
eaters.
yeah, they can just eat and not feel satiated. And I'll give another example too. I was with Casey Ruff at Hack Your Health, and we went to this place, Cooper's, in Texas, and we got ribeyes that are like smoked ribeyes, like Texas style. It's one of the best things I've ever had.
Mm.
So when I eat my steaks, I eat the fat first. So I eat
Mm.
fat first, and Casey was eating it from like the out the leaner part into the fat. He's like, "How do you do that?" He goes, "If I ate that first, I would be too satiated." And I even think about it. I'm
Mm.
like, "Dude, no, man. I love the fat. Like that's my favorite part. So I go to that first." And so we were eating our steaks differently. Actually, he didn't finish his steak. He brought it to the airport the next day. I finished my whole steak, and I can do that if I'm not hungry. So there's something up with my could be a hormone thing, could be whatever. Like I'm not that satiety isn't there. It's the nutrients are there, right? Where I should be satiated, but I don't get full until I hit the volume.
Mhm. I'm
And
the same way.
yeah, so I've changed it around where I might hit that volume, but the cuts are going to be different. The fat's going to be lower. It's going to be leaner. And that has been working for me very well. So it's a long-winded answer to say I think it kind of depends because you got people eating sticks of butter every
Mm.
day and they're like, they look great. they look great,
Right.
so
And
I
their
don't.
metabolisms seem to just adjust to that,
Yeah,
and they maintain weight. And so, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I do think that there's like, a point where energy does matter, and the energy you bring in gets stored before it gets burned. And if you're not burning it, then you are going to end up in a surplus and end up gaining weight. And if that's not what you're looking for, then you've got to, switch something around. And it is always incredible to me. I do love that people have this experience where they can eat as much as they want, and maybe they're eating less, like, maybe they're what they want is less than what I want, and maybe
yeah,
that's how it works out for them, but it's incredible how different it can be for people. But yeah, I mean, even though you were eating strict carnivore, you did gain, and
yeah.
staying carnivore, just adjusting cuts has been helpful to
Yeah,
you.
I just did a which is even crazier that this post got taken down. So weird. I don't know if you saw it, but I did like a
Mm-mm.
post on and I showed my chart. So it's January. You can see the chart. I don't know which way, right or left, it's going to show up on the screen, but the my weight from January went up, 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 and then I was like, "Oh shit, I'm like 197. This is kind of high." And I literally just switched everything, and I wasn't even really tracking over the past couple months. I came back from Japan, which I ate things that weren't carnivore. I also did a post on that of I planned on going to certain places and eating. I did a little bit more fasting a couple days, just because I didn't want to eat out every day, and it was actually the meat wasn't to my liking in some of the
Mm.
areas that I was staying. I came back, I'm like, let me get on the scale. I don't even know what I'm at. I'm like, I kind of feel pretty lean right now. I was 184.
Wow.
I lost like 13 pounds going on vacation and eating a ton and going whatever. But over those, I just was very conscious of those weeks leading into my trip of just getting a little bit of higher protein, a little less fat. And that kind of did the trick. And I think a little bit higher protein is going to make me a little bit satiated, or it's going to make me feel filled up. And that's just
Mhm.
been working for me. And I'm down in weight. I'm almost 180 right now without even changing anything besides the cuts and the fat percentage. That's it.
Right. That was my experience too. It was a matter of like switching from ribeyes to, like I said, to sirloins and flat irons, and it was just incredible. And it's you're not necessarily um changing anything but the cuts, and you're just not intentionally adding fats, and you're, just switching cuts. You're not like eating extra protein, you're not just like having protein powder constantly, but the protein gets higher because the cuts have changed, and so you are having more protein because you're having more volume, and you're having maybe the same or less amount of, you're having less calories because you've switched your cuts. So, I mean, let's talk a little bit about your trip to Tokyo. Like, how did you navigate that? What you were sort of alluding to, there were some things there that weren't working for you, some things that you were trying to do, like eat local cuisine and sort of participate in, you know, the fullness of your trip, but not ruin all that you had done to prepare for the trip. So like give us some tips. Like what did you do when you were traveling?
Yeah, that's my biggest thing, and anytime I talk about with people and people get very dogmatic of well, you're carnivore, you have to only eat this way. I'm like, no, man, I could eat whatever I want.
We're
Once
adults, right?
we're adults, yeah. And I always had this dream of I really want to go to Japan. And everybody that I've ever talked to that's gone to Japan was like, dude, you gotta go. It's so awesome. And I was lucky enough to go there for 2 weeks, maybe a little over 2 weeks. And uh, I knew I made a plan. I made a plan. There was going to be days we already you have to make a lot of reservations out there too. You got to have reservations, but we made reservations, me and a friend, of certain places we're going to go. The best pizza I've had. I've been to Italy. I've had pizza in Italy. I had
Yeah.
better pizza in Tokyo.
Wow.
2 hour sushi experience. I don't even like sushi. And my buddy's like, "Hey, if we're going, you got to try it." He's like, "You're in Japan, you got to do this." And I kind of didn't want to do it. I had some of the craziest things. I had octopus heads,
So you had seafood, and you
yeah.
didn't think you would like it?
I didn't think I would like it. I would say 90% of it I did like bluefin tuna. We had like this salmon. I mean, it had rice on it. It had this, it had that. And but I knew I wasn't gonna feel guilty because I planned it. It's not like,
Mhm.
oh, let's be bad today and like let's get a bunch of fries and let's get whatever. No, it was a part of my plan going out there. I knew I was gonna experience those dishes, and when I didn't eat at the restaurants that we looked up and we already knew we were gonna go to, I try to prioritize, you can get at the local stores, like hard-boiled eggs. I would get hard-boiled eggs. I did have some of the fruit out there. The fruit is different than out here, so it was just a great, like, experience to experience fruit in Japan, like grapes especially, are very different.
Mm,
And I had some of that. And the days where I knew I was going to be in between or taking trains, because I went all over Japan. Like I'm taking 2, 3 hour train rides to get to the other side of Japan. I'm just like, well, if I'm going to be sitting all pretty much a day and this, that, the other, I'm just going to fast. And I was cool with that. I already had the cuisine here. I already had the cuisine there. So the days that I wasn't moving around as much or I had to take a long train, I incorporated fasting because everything that's in those like convenience stores leading up to the train, most of it's not good stuff. It's all out
mm,
of a box and whatever. So having a plan, being okay and experiencing, and this is the other piece that people don't talk about. You have to be a little bit lenient too, because if you are too strict with anything in your life, you're not going to stick to it. Right? If I'm so committed to working out, which is great, you want to commit to that. Being consistent is great, but also if you need a day off, it's okay to take a day off. Like you have to
mhm.
have this relationship with your health and wellness. And if you go to Italy, you go to Japan, whatever, be able and okay to have those experiences because this is yet life. If I have to give up, I love coffee. I do like drinking red wine. And if I'm in Italy with my family in Italy and they make a homemade dinner, what am I gonna not eat it? Like
Right.
if I if I lose 3 years, 4 or 5 years of my life, right, because I did that, I'm okay with that. That's me. I'm okay with that. Like, I would rather live to 97 because I had, food for my family in Italy and enjoyed some red wine and had pizza in Tokyo than live to 100 because I had a
Right.
good life. Like, I had those experiences. I'll never until I go to Japan again, if I ever go back, I'll never have that experience again. So that's where this food freedom comes into play, which is so huge for me because I will get addicted to two options, right? I'm going to be addicted to the carbohydrates, I'm going to be addicted to the food. Once I cheat, it is a downhill slope.
Mm.
There's no stopping. Like I cheated on my diet, therefore I messed it up. So
Right,
maybe
and
I'll
then you get the "you might as wells."
you might as well, hey, it's Tuesday.
Right.
You already messed up the week. You might as well keep it going. And then that used to be a trivia name of my trivia team. Diet starts Monday.
Oh, wow.
It's true. And the same thing
So
with
it
working out. You skip one day or whatever it may be, or you didn't get your workout in. You're like, oh, I guess I'll start on Monday. Well, it's like,
Right.
no, like try not to go 2 days in a row. And if you got want to experience things or have things outside the diet, that's okay within reason. But it wasn't a cheat meal. It was just a meal.
Just a plan.
Yeah.
I have a friend, named Samantha, she's also on Instagram, she calls them plan deviation, and so it's like a very, sort of like an adult thing to say, "You know what? We're gonna live and experience life." And if you feel okay, I mean, I feel like if I dipped into fruit for a day, I would feel horrible and it would ruin the rest of my
Yeah.
trip. But if you're feeling okay, then you don't beat yourself up about it, you get right back to it when you're done with that, and then life moves on. It's a fantastic life experience that you didn't have to miss out on. And so how did you feel? Like you felt all right having the non-carnivore foods like
No,
for those
no,
2 weeks?
no.
You did not feel
I did not feel
oh,
good.
no.
I mean, I prioritized working out a lot too. Like I would go to the Gold's Gym out there. I would run. If I didn't lift that day, I ran. And if I didn't lift or run, I mean, I was going over 14,000 steps for sure, easily on those days. So my activity level was always high. But some of the days after some of the food, I was like, and that's another reason I fasted some of the days because I just didn't feel that good
Mm.
after the food. I tried it. I would say I didn't have one bad meal in Japan. But yeah, the night we had pizza, it was great, and we had I had dessert too, guys. I had some, avocado espresso with some
Oh,
ice
the coffee
cream.
with the ice cream.
Yeah,
I've
like, I
never
had
tried this.
that. We split some tiramisu, me and my buddy. I was like, "I'm here," like, "Let's try this out," and everything was really good, but the next day, I didn't eat the next day. I just
Mm.
fasted. I worked out and I fasted, and I felt, better.
Let me ask you this, because since you're a coach, I like to ask this of all the coaches that come on. You've seen people sort of start any program, right? Whether it's nutrition coaching or strength coaching. Um, you see them start strong and then they sort of like fizzle out. And with myself too, I see clients that just sort of like fizzle out, and they're like, "Yeah, I'll get back to you," and then that they're off track.
Yeah.
What do you do? What do you say to keep people motivated? Like, what is your top advice for maintaining motivation, maintaining consistency long term when that initial excitement of like, I'm going to do carnivore, I'm going to start training? What advice do you give people? I mean, I think, well, I'll just let you take it from there. What advice do you give people?
I've been asked this question a bunch of times, and I still to this. I think this is one of the hardest questions to answer because I feel there is no answer to it. There, there's things that I do that I believe of trying to get the person to revisit the why of why they want to get stronger. Why do they want to take their health into their own hands? Like, why this whole aspect of it really needs to come from them. And you it's really hard to motivate somebody that is unwilling to be motivated. Like, I cannot
Mhm.
bring you like I can't be you can't just depend on somebody to give you like the Nick Saban speech every single time you're on a Zoom call with them to pump them up to get them to do the plan that you'd set out. And some coaches would look at that and be like, "Oh, that coach is being lazy or whatever." I'm like, "No, it really needs to come from the person, and their mindset has to be fixed on, I am going to get better. I'm going to do this for either get metabolically healthy. I want to feel stronger, this, that, or the other. And it all has to come down to what is the real reason of why you're doing this. And if it is aesthetics, like, I'm not your coach. I'm not the
Mhm.
person for you. I'll tell you right now. If you're doing carnivore for aesthetic reasons, yeah, I can help you. I give you the plan. But once you get to that goal weight and you feel like you look good, and you're just gonna go back and do what you were doing before, and then use carnivore to leverage just to keep losing weight, you might as well find a bodybuilding coach, find somebody
Mm.
else, right? Strength training. I have clients that, not that we have arguments, but I'm like, "Hey, like, I need you to stay at this weight for a little bit longer period of time, or I'll program some things different than what they see. They want to keep going up in weight." And there's like the conversation we had earlier. And my professional opinion is that you shouldn't be doing that, you know? And that's one version. The other version is I have for with my kettlebell apps, when people log sessions, I can see when they log it and where they're at in their program. I'll send them like, "Hey, like, everything cool? You haven't logged in a couple days." "Oh, I just been busy. I've been this, whatever." It's like we got to make time. And I tell people too, like, if you're really serious about it and you like life happens, you don't have time, you got to be doing something those days. Like, if you're not going to do the full workout, do one section. My goal in life right now for clients especially, get them metabolically healthy and get them strong. Those are my two goals. Like, that doesn't mean, yeah, by a byproduct of committing to this, you're gonna look better. That's just going to happen after time.
Mhm.
But I don't care. about how you look. I really care, like, can you do the things in life that life demands of you? Are you a good dad? Are you a good like a husband? Are you a good person? Like, can you do all the commitments, around you? Like, that is more important to me than like, dude, that dude's shredded. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
and I've not worked with people. I've told people I don't think I'm the person for you, because the people that are coming to me, I am a carnivore coach, but I fall under what I believe is like a primal alignment. That's what I call the primal alignment diet. Is like, if you want to have vegetables because you're not sold on carnivore, cool. You want to have fruit
Mhm.
and you want to do the meat based, the Paul Saladino thing, cool. That is better than, eating very simple single ingredients than eating crap. Your pantry is filled. That's my big thing of like, get stuff out of your pantry that's in a box, that's processed. Let's just get to whole real foods. That's a win. Like, if you want to try carnivore, I got you. If you're like, I can't do it, because that's like, it's like
Mhm.
changing a religion, right? Like, I can't not have
It's not
vegetables.
for everyone,
It's not
right.
for everybody, but I think I would never sway anybody away from getting away from animal fats and protein. I think those are essential for your health and longevity. And those other things, if you want to add those, great. But if you're not on board, at least with that, with me, I can't help you. You got to go
Mhm.
somewhere else, find somebody else, because I can't help you there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. It's like the basis of the sticking to your plan and being consistent and going for a why that's a little bit more deeper than, I just want to look shredded.
Yeah.
That's what's going to keep you motivated. Like what do you can't have that aesthetic goal keep you motivated. It has to be a little more of the deeper things I find. And having the ability to perform consistently, show up, be a good dad, you know, eating well to sort of feed your mind and keep that clarity, and training consistently to stay functionally fit constantly. I mean, those are the things that really will keep you going through your years. Having that additional muscle will keep you strong, keep you balanced, keep you from falling, breaking a hip, that kind of stuff that really takes us out in the end.
Yeah.
So, I mean, thank you so much. We're so over on time, and I appreciate you spending so much time here, and sharing all of this amazing information about, your training and your thoughts about, food and just living well, and the balance between, how to train hard but also live well. I really appreciate it. But before we wrap up, like, can you just let people know where they can find you, and like how they can connect with you, all of your information?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Tony underscore Primal Foundations. I'm most active on that. I don't have a TikTok. And my website is primalfoundations.com. So anybody that's ever wants to work with me for nutrition, you can always book a consult to strength training and programming. They can book a consult. It's all free. To see if I'm a good fit for you. And then again, like we talked about, that's a big piece. On my Instagram, on the bio, I also have some kettlebell programs. Anybody's interested in kettlebell programs, I have a 101, which is like basics and fundamentals, and I have an advanced program that's for some people. It's not for the faint of heart. It's called the Strength Forge. So those
Yeah, I
that's
was looking at that earlier. That's an advanced program, but you have a beginner program too.
Yeah, Kettlebell 101. It's to me, me and I have to mention my partner in that, Steve Carlson. He's a strong first instructor too. But that Kettlebell 101 program, we try to price it a moderate price for what you're getting, and it's going to help you develop all of the movements, and it's a very good way to kind of dip people's toe into proper kettlebell programming. And it's 3 days a week, focusing on the swing, focusing on the Turkish get up, focusing on certain presses, and getting you to move better and be stronger, because that's always our goal. But the Forge is like a 4 day a week. You gotta know what you're doing for that one. So, but
Mhm.
that's how people, either the website, Instagram, they can check out Primal Foundations podcast on Spotify, Apple. I'm on YouTube too. So
Awesome. Yeah, people should go back and listen to our previous episode on your podcast
Yes.
because there's a lot of information. There's so many things that I wanted to talk to you about that I didn't even get to, and we're just having this great conversation. I'm gonna have to talk to you some more because I've got other questions for you.
There's always part 2. It's the good part about this stuff. It's always a part 2.
Well, thank you so much for the time you've given. I really appreciate it. You were very generous with your time, so I won't keep you any longer. Tony, thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your night.
You too. Thanks for the opportunity.